Hello, and welcome back to another Half Pint session. I spend a lot of time in these episodes talking to people who write things, who analyze the texts of Lewis and the Inklings, and then write books about them. But today I'm speaking to somebody a little different because she reads Lewis and then she translates Lewis not into another book, but onto the stage. Nicole Stratton, welcome to Pints with Jack.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about this.
Well, would you mind just introducing yourself to our viewers?
Sure. Yes, my name is Nicole Stratton, and I'm privileged to be the artistic director for the Academy of Arts Ministry. That's a ministry that was founded in 1971. So this January, we're 53 years old. And
That's my
my
age.
parents,
Well, not quite, but nearly.
not quite. You look very young. But my parents founded the ministry actually in 1971. And so I've grown up in it. And then the Lord led me to my husband, and we got married, and now we're in leadership. So I now make the decisions on the shows that we're going to be doing, and I do a lot of writing and just a lot of artistic exercise with our team, which is an amazing team at the Logos Theater. So, yeah, Narnia has now been something that we are doing full force. I've done two of my own adaptations, one of Prince Caspian, which was actually a world premiere. No one had ever put Prince Caspian on the stage before, and now that I've done it, I know why. So it's quite the undertaking. But that's where I first met Douglas Gresham and started having my scripts vetted through him, and then went on to do The Horse and His Boy. So we're actually here in Kentucky right now at the Ark Encounter touring with The Horse and His Boy. So it's showing here through January 20th, which is really neat. It's been touring now for over a year. So it's been amazing to see all that growing.
When I was a kid, my mum took me to several adaptations of the Chronicles of Narnia. I think they were all in Oxford, but I definitely remember The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, The Magician's Nephew, and I want to say maybe, I don't think it was Horse and His Boy, maybe The Silver Chair was the other one that we did. But as a kid, I absolutely loved it. And
Yes.
so when I returned to Lewis as an adult, I was a little peeved. It was like, why are people not still doing that? I want to take my kids to it. So I'm very pleased that you guys are doing that. And you got to keep going for at least another 5 years until Alexander's old enough to come and see you guys.
Oh, exactly. And it's been quite a journey. I actually said I would never do the Narnia series because well, in America, I have seen several adaptations of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And unfortunately, I've always been disappointed in the way it's been handled. And so I thought, I love the book so much. I grew up reading the books. My parents, before I could read, were reading the books to us as children. And they have had such an impact on my life. They're so beloved that I didn't want to ruin them. I didn't want to mess them up. And so I didn't want to hurt the books anyway or do them an injustice. So I really thought I was just going to stay away from them. But then we were put in a situation where we really wanted to grow what we were doing and grow just the visibility of the Logos Theater. And someone mentioned doing the Narnia series. I said, oh no. But I really wanted to make sure we could do Aslan well if I was going to even take a stab at it. So I talked to our technical director at that point, and that's when we really launched into more of the large scale theatrical puppetry, which now our ministry and our theater is known for. So we've now built several large theatrical puppetry. So Aslan was our first one. And he is just a beautiful, and I hate calling them puppets. It's not a great word to describe what these things are, but they're just beautiful. And watching them perform is amazing. Now we have horses and several, actually in The Horse and His Boy, as you know in the book, Aslan appears to them in different forms. So we have a cat that's a puppet. We use Japanese style puppetry for that. And then we have a smaller lion that looks a lot more fierce that they believe is trying to eat them, trying to kill them. And that's the lion that scratches Erebus's back. And then, of course, we have the great lion, Aslan, who is in his big form where he actually comes to Shasta and meets him there in the fog. So, yeah, I got my master's degree in dramatic production from our college program. I went through all of that. And, it was always a challenge, the different shows that we did. But I will say, taking on the Lewis books brought it to a whole new level of challenge. Not only, just putting them on stage physically, but also the writing process as well. A challenge, but also, I have to say, probably the biggest blessing so far of my life in my writing career. It's been an absolute joy to work on them.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about that adaptation process. You've mentioned the puppetry, and I haven't seen any of your shows yet, but I've watched the trailers many, many times. Uh, but it put me in mind of when I went to see The Lion King for the first time with my
Mm.
mother in London and saw the way they did the animals there. And it's incredible how how evocative everything can be. It's almost like
Mm.
the puppetry starts off and your imagination just fills in everything else without any effort.
Yes. Yep, it
Uh,
really does. In fact, that's what we keep hearing from people is that the first few moments they're like taken back, and then all the puppeteers go away and they're just seeing the animal come to life. And when Aslan comes onto the stage, in fact, majority of the time when he is seen for the first time on the stage in his beautiful larger form, it stops the show and the people are applauding in a very respectful kind of applaud for him. And so I've loved work, actually not only directing him, but acting off of those puppets is quite intense. I mean, with the puppeteers inside of them, the life that they can bring to the animal is unbelievable. So
and
really,
sheer
without
size.
puppetry, I'm sorry.
And sheer size.
Oh, my
They are not
goodness. And the
small.
horses. The children have to learn how to ride real horses first, and then they're put on the puppets and they learn how to ride the puppets. They're literally riding those horses in the show of The Horse and His Boy. So those puppeteers are puppeting for 3 hours, carrying not only their puppets' weight, but also the children's weight. So they do a lot of work and they do an excellent job.
Well, let's take a step back and in terms of the actual writing. I mean, where do you actually even begin when it's been decided, okay, we're going to do a Narnian Chronicle? How do you start the adaptation process?
Oh, well, for me, my process sometimes is it can be different depending on what's happening in my life. Interestingly enough, and I think it's very apropos because of Lewis himself. Every single book I've worked on, similar instances or circumstances have been happening in my life where that book has spoken straight to my heart while I'm working on it. My first thing though that I've been doing, I guess every time, is just I read the book several times. I listen to it, the beautiful audio dramas that they have from Focus on the Family. I'll listen to those in the car. I just saturate myself with the book first, and then I get really just quiet with the book for a while. And I know it sounds funny, but I want to know really how, if Lewis were going to come to watch this production, that he would be pleased with the way I'm actually handling the material. And for me with Caspian, there were a few things. I mean, there's challenges in all of the books. Each book I have found has its own interesting style that emerges, whereas Caspian had a certain style of time layering. So in the book, he's doing a lot of things. He's talking about things that are happening at the similar time. So how do I show that on stage? That at the time Peter is in this duel, at the same time Aslan is at this feast, and different things are happening, layering time. And that was a really fun challenge to bring onto the stage. And I felt like really translated well, where it shocks the audience and the techniques that we're using. They're like, whoa, and then they realize what's happening, and it really delights them, the fact of we're reminding them that these instances are all happening at the same time. But Caspian also had an interesting challenge, I felt, with the nurse particularly. I know that may seem strange, but I felt a very strong connection to that character as a mother. And I know you said you have a toddler, and I think that we know and we can see Lewis's love for his mother. And I think even though the nurse is only in there for a phrase, she has such an impact on young Caspian's life with what she taught him and how he learned to love the old things because of her. So I really kind of leaned into that a little bit more. And any time where I am expanding the world, I'm trying to expand the world in the same vein of the book and not veer from the essence of the book. And that's actually something Douglas Gresham really enjoyed. He said it brought him to tears watching the scenes between the nurse and young Caspian, because you need on stage, you've got to connect. We've got people coming to see these shows who love Narnia and are avid fans, but then we also have people who don't know anything about the books, and they must connect to these characters. And I felt like the nurse herself brings in such a connection to young Caspian and makes you really sympathize with him when she's taken from him. So, human moments like that. Also, Gresham was just amazing to work with. I didn't expect to work with him, actually. I started working through with the regular people that vet the scripts, and there was a particular thing that they were saying I could not do. And instead of taking that no, I decided I'd write to them and explain why I felt it was necessary for the stage adaptation. And lo and behold, the next person that starts writing me back is Douglas Gresham. And he says, you know, in his beautiful way, that he loves what I'm doing and that he wants to, you know, vet the script with me. And then, you know, that alone was such an amazing experience. So he vetted the script, and then I kept feeling like maybe he wanted to come see it. He kept saying, I'm interested to see how you're going to do this technique and this, you know, this special effect on stage. And so we asked him if he would want to come. And he actually flew over from Malta, and he promoted the show for a week all over our area and came to the premiere. And that was, you know, it was terrifying, but it was also amazing to have him there. And then he also did the same thing for Horse and His Boy. He came back and promoted it for a week and was present. That was even more pressure because, as you know, the book is dedicated to him and his brother by Lewis. So no pressure there, but he was delightful to have and really gave us high compliments. Actually, he said that he would have really loved to have used our version of Prince Caspian in the stage, in the film. Actually, if he had had it, he really loved the way that, I guess, the angles that we were taking on the book. So that was a high compliment and just really encouraging on our whole journey of bringing Narnia to life, which is quite daunting.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do think Lewis would have approved of your expanding slightly the role of the nurse, because for Lewis, without exception, in his books, whenever he mentions the word nurse or nurseries, it's nothing but positive, because he loved his own childhood nurse, Lizzie Endicott. And it's something that he associates with a time of happiness and innocence and fantasy before his mother died and he was sent away to boarding school. So I think that expansion Lewis would have been a big fan of. But when you were doing these adaptations, were there any particular problems that you had to overcome? You mentioned the layering of time in Prince Caspian, and also it begins effectively with a flashback as well. So timing issues just abound in that one. But were there any other issues that you had?
Oh, there's that's a big question. I would say for me with Prince Caspian, I really did not want to begin where the book began. The reason for that is because the main challenge that I faced with Prince Caspian is after the battle, where you have this big climax and all these amazing things have happened. The book actually goes on for several, you know, chapters after that, talking about the different things that happen with the water god and the healing of the nurse and all the different events that are happening. So that was more of a challenge to make sure that I kept the timeline correct, and that, but also I didn't hurt the climax of a stage production to where we weren't hitting a climax after the battle and then boom, you're having to have all this explanation at the end that could potentially really, you know, lose your audience. So just as a little bit of a spoiler, if you haven't seen the show live, it actually begins in a place where you're not expecting it to begin. But if you're familiar, you are very familiar, but if people are familiar with the book, they'll go, oh, and they'll realize what I'm doing, where I'm actually bringing you up to speed with who are the Telmarines, how did they come into Narnia? Because if I don't do it there at the beginning, I will have to do it at the end, and it will really kill the momentum. And it really does grab the audience. When we were first going to do Prince Caspian in the Logos Theater, we were performing another show, and I actually tagged on at the end of that show a little sneak peek of Prince Caspian, the very first scenes of it, and showed my audiences live, almost like a live trailer. And it starts with this huge thunderclap, and you're all of a sudden brought into this world. You expect to be in the train station. You expect to be with the four Pevensies talking about their adventures in Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. But it actually begins with the shipwreck of the Telmarines on the shore, and it takes you through how they got into Narnia. At that point, it ends with the nurse holding an infant Caspian, and she's been talking to him about this story. It's actually her voice that's taking you through all these things. And so she's, you know, at the end, she's holding up Prince Caspian, and then you know you're in Caspian, but then boom, we go straight into the train. So it gives you great background, but also really captures your audience's attention. And I think it worked out really well on that. With The Horse and His Boy, you could potentially actually, though the book is phenomenal, if you put it on stage just as it is, you would almost be going through a series of just conversation after conversation. And the audience nowadays, their attention span is so small, we could lose them very quickly. So I had this idea, and I do remember sitting at my laptop writing it and thinking, okay, this is either going to be a really phenomenal idea or this is going to be really bad, and I'm going to need to scratch it all together. But it worked out to where, as Erebus begins her story, we actually go inside the story of Erebus while she's telling it, and it comes to life all around her. And so we're never just kind of sitting on the horses, walking, just telling our stories. We're actually experiencing the story. We're meeting the stepmother, and going through all of these experiences with Erebus, which I think endears you to her, even though she is quite snarky. So endearing you to Erebus is quite the task. But I think it just gives you such a, I don't know, more of an experience of the world that she's coming from. So that has been one of the biggest things we've heard from people who have come to see the shows, that they just immerse you in the world of Narnia, and where they expand, they're expanding inside the heartbeat of the book, and they're not taking you, derailing you into the green mist or in other things like that that should not be present.
Yeah, that was
So,
the thing that I had heard from people that had seen it. They remarked that the expanded scenes, so to speak, they particularly liked. And I've got to imagine doing that has got to be kind of terrifying.
oh my goodness,
You know,
yes.
we're having this conversation after the Rings of Power has been on Amazon, and I hated every second. Well, not every second of it, most seconds of it, particularly when
Yes.
anyone was talking. And and you see the problem when someone that's not Tolkien tries to write Tolkien.
Tolkien.
Unless
Oh,
they have been absolutely living and breathing it, it stands out like a sore thumb. So,
yes.
what was it like putting dialogue to scenes that we are told about but don't actually hear or see?
And I think that is literally one of the best questions I've ever been asked, because that alone, I spent so much time immersed in Lewis's writings to be able to, in a way, match his rhythm and his melodies and the way he structures things. Because writers have these certain styles that are musical. And Lewis, because he is Lewis and he is an absolute master, he is actually musical in his style of writing. And if you can find his musical meter, and that was my goal, was that they would not be able to tell where Lewis stopped and where I began, and I could feather it in, without them feeling jarred and taken out of his world. I am so grateful that so far people have felt that way, that they could not tell where it was beginning and ending, and that it felt like it was a part of the whole work. And I'm just so grateful for that, because I have so much respect for him and respect for the books. They have made a huge impact on me, and I would never want to hurt them in any way. So I think just a lot of studying of the rhythm and the melodies of Lewis, which again I felt like elevated my writing, and really it took me to another level, because I was, as a painter would be copying a master. That's how, you're looking at the master and you're trying to imitate what they're doing, and it will do nothing but elevate your own craft.
We just brought this book back into print, and it's an analysis done at Azusa Pacific University on Lewis's letters, which is what we're doing this season. And in his letters, he explicitly says, write for the ear. And Lewis's own
Really?
writing with a dip pen, this is why he said that he did that rather than using a ballpoint pen or a pen that you didn't have to constantly recharge back at the inkwell. Because what he would do is he'd write a few words, sound it out in his head, and then as he's refilling, he's now thinking, what there's the call, what is the response, how is the next bit going to sound? So you describing it
Amazing.
in those terms is particularly perfect.
Wow.
I would just
That
like
is
to say, producers of Rings of Power, please pay attention. I know you watch this channel.
and I'm brave. That was my first, just when we were first doing The Horse and His Boy, Douglas Gresham told me the company had given the rights to Netflix, and my heart sank a little bit, because we have a film company, and it's always been a dream of mine to really, my style of directing on stage is cinematic. I see things in my mind more as cinematic, and so what I do not have the means right now to do full cinematic things of Narnia. So what I see in my head, I'm trying to put on the stage and do as a stage. So for example, the scene where Shasta is in the mist and Aslan comes to him.
Mm.
I
My
articulated to my
favorite scene of the
team,
entire book.
oh,
One who has waited
and
long for you to speak.
And I wish I could fly you over here because I want you to see the show. If you love it that much, you've got to see it, because that really, for me, I said, guys, I know we're on stage and I know we have the limitation of stage, but I would love to do this the same way I would film it. And that would be that, as he says, I was the lion, who forced you to join with Erevish. Boom, go into this flashback where you hear and you see that moment again. And then I would do flashbacks throughout that. And they said, well, let's go for it. So literally that sequence on stage takes every single cast member. We have multiple Shasta doubles. All the puppets are used in that one sequence to bring that scene between Aslan and Shasta to life. And he is actually on stage turning around and seeing flashbacks of himself riding on the horses with Erebus and meeting the very frightening lion in the tombs and meeting the cat. He's actually seeing himself experience this all again. And I was so pleased with how that turned out on stage, because it was quite an undertaking to try to bring that type of cinematic effect to the stage. But I think it worked really well. So when I heard that they were going to do them, for me, it must take people that truly love and are affected and understand the meanings behind Lewis's works to bring justice to them, I feel. And so that's been my prayer, is that they will really immerse themselves in the books, that maybe they would even partner with people like us who could be advisors on the script level, because I think the fans they want that experience. They're tired of having to come with intrepidation to see something. They want to come with full knowledge that the people that have these books in their hands are going to treat them with respect. So I would say the same thing. People treat Shakespeare with that kind of respect. They wouldn't mess around with that. They want to bring that and respect the writing. I would say the same thing about, Lewis, and the fact of, I have a lot of respect for what he wrote and the mastery of it. And he did things on purpose. And I think you coming to that story with that in your mind and having had it change you, it really helps you bring, I think, the power behind those works to life.
When I first saw some footage of Prince Caspian, my first thought was, I really hope somebody recorded this. Even if you guys aren't the ones to produce the movies, I think at the time we knew it had been sold to Netflix, but it had all gone quiet. It's just like, I want someone to get how this may be done, particularly after the increasingly decreasing quality of the movies that we got from Walden Media, at least initially.
Yes.
So that was my first thought. I was like, I hope someone's at least recorded this, because, for example, Max McLean in his movie The Most Reluctant Convert, before that was converted into a full movie, someone had at least recorded his monologue of him on a stage doing it. And that's a much more static kind of play. So I kind of hope someone is at least got a secret recording somewhere of the stuff that you guys do for
I will tell you, we're very forward thinking. We went ahead because we have a film company, and they gave us permission to do an archival copy of it. So we actually went in with multiple cameras and filmed it professionally, and we have it as an archival. And I don't know, to me, I would love for Netflix to even consider doing some kind of a license deal with us to be able to show the stage adaptations, because I know even on Netflix they're showing the stage version of Hamilton and Newsies and several stage shows that have translated very well to film. And you could still make the series, but then you could also put onto Netflix the stage adaptations, which they would be able to do because they have the rights. Right now, we're not able to show them, because of the copyright issues, but we wanted to preserve them and, have them for the archival. So we do have those archival things, and we have the capability. If they said tomorrow, hey, film it at this kind of a quality and we'll put it on Netflix, we've got the capacity to do that. And I think I would absolutely love that to happen. It would be an amazing thing just to share with the fans, what these books translated to on stage.
Yeah, what they can actually look like. Well, let's end this half pint by making a complete pitch. So you've said that Netflix can put up the recordings of your stage productions. What's your advice to them with regards to adaptations? Because there's a lot of stuff they can do, particularly since they have the entire series. I am a diehard publication order only reader, but I'm willing to change that for the sake of Netflix's reimagining. They can start with Magician's Nephew if they really want to.
Right.
But so there's nothing's off the table as far as I'm concerned. What are your couple of pieces of advice of what they should definitely try to do and definitely try to avoid?
I think their main thing really needs to be absolute purity of the books. They need to, if they expand things, it's got to be in the vein of the books. It's got to be in the spirit of the books. And I think they need to win over the fans. They need to include people on their team, on their creative team, who have the heartbeat of these books, inside of them. And particularly us, we would love to be included on their team, because I think if the fans know that there are people at the helm, or at least a part of that team, who are going to be speaking into this. I know Mr. Gresham, as much as he's able to at this point in his life, he's going to be speaking in. But just the fact of, it's not just about getting the cool actor or this, getting. I know they're all excited about the new director and the new writer. And that's amazing. But as long as they consider the fans, that really what we want is a pure adaptation. That's what we want. We're not really so much impressed with big names and big careers as much as we want true, excellent, powerful, professional adaptations of the book. We want, everybody got Lord of the Rings at this huge scale. We want Narnia at that scale, and we want it done with people who have the heartbeat of it. So maybe talk to people who have the heartbeat of this and really know it well and are succeeding. Like, that's what right now our adaptations are succeeding. So we'd love to even have a talk about it. Why are they succeeding? What makes these adaptations accepted by the fans? And, where are the pitfalls that you could really step into and be enveloped in the green mist, which we don't want to see them do. We don't want to see them get caught up in stuff like this. We want to see it the way we have imagined in our mind as we've read these books from childhood through adulthood,
Yeah. The Voyage of the Dawn Treader and the Green Mist. I mean, other people have told me they could imagine how it could have possibly have worked. I'm personally not convinced. But the real crime in that movie was the undragoning of Eustace. That is the central part of that book, and it was lame. It was just like Aslan scratching a little bit on the on the sand, and then Eustace floating. And
it seems to me, and at those crucial moments, even with Caspian, I was so just let down with Trumpkin's first seeing of Aslan and that interaction between him, where he really becomes a believer in Aslan in this scene. And that is such a powerful moment between Trumpkin and Aslan, that, again, in Caspian. And then the random love things and all the things that they think that the audience wants, but really the fans want the books. That's what we want, so.
Yeah, and I have officially announced that if they're willing to fly me to New Zealand or back to England or wherever it is they're filming it, I am willing to shill for this thing pretty hard.
Yes, they should take you up on it.
But my conscience would be much happier if it was also good.
Yes.
Well, as we wrap up, where can people go to find out more about you and the company? And do you have any other Lewis works in the pipeline?
Yes, we are. Right now, I am working on the next book, the adaptation. I'm about halfway done, and we will be announcing what that is very soon. But I am so excited about it. It will take every single trick we have to be able to bring this book particularly to life. And very soon, we want to premiere that book, and that will be another world premiere, another book that has never been done professionally before. And then right now I'm in talks with some authors who have done works on, like fictional works on the Lewis world, especially about C.S. Lewis. And we're in talks about things like that for our film company, actually, to be able to make some films that, if I can't have the Narnia books themselves, I'm going after things that can get me in that world. So, just excited about the future, because really what the Lord has been raising up, and with our ministry, he's been raising up people who love these works, who are dedicated to it, and who want to just pull out all the stops and make them as awesome as possible. So I'm excited to see all the different connections that we've been making through the years all coming together to see if some of these works can be premiered here really soon.
And do you guys have a main website that people should go to find out more about you, buy tickets, all that sort of thing?
Yes, the logostheater.com is where they can go. And that's Logos is Logos, the logostheater.com. And they can go there. They can see where we're touring. We will be taking Prince Caspian. We've redone the entire set. We've built 2 new puppets for that show. The wild bear will be puppeted. He is incredible. Like, I saw him in the warehouse and I was terrified. And then also Bulgy Bear will be puppeted as well this time. So we've got Destrier in that show. We've got the bears, several different puppets in that one. We're premiering that up at Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C., starting March 1st, and it goes through April 27th. So if they want to come see a show live, obviously we can't show the DVDs of them right now, but you can come see them live. And we'll be premiering that up there for those 2 months. And I cannot wait. It's going to be absolutely fantastic to see it all come to life. And we will be touring that one probably afterwards as well around the country. So I would love to see it come overseas. We did take the European script of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe to Scotland. We were asked to come to the Fringe Festival and represent the United States. So we did do that over there. And when I was over there, I thought we need to bring the other books over here and do this over more in the stomping ground of Lewis. That would be really amazing to see happen. So maybe someday we'll be able to take a tour.
I love it. Wonderful. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. It's been delightful. Thank you so much for the time.
And viewers, please join us again next time when we'll continue going further up and further in. Cheers.